Good morning, everyone. On this dreary, rainy day, I'm coming to you from the basement of our church. This is where we store all of the different things we use in the liturgy throughout the year. And I wanted to show you particularly that we have two images of Christ on the cross. The one that's up there now is the risen Christ, and it emphasizes the victory of Good Friday and the resurrection. So it's kind of the risen Christ on the cross. But we have another one, and that's the one here, which emphasizes the suffering of Christ. That you don't get to the resurrection unless you go through Good Friday. And so this is really a stark image of Jesus and the suffering he went through for us on the cross. We try to change this every 6 months, but it's so hard because this is delicate material and it's kind of awkward trying to get it up the steps and everything without damaging it. That's the problem. But I just wanted to let you know that when our church was built, they gave us two images of Christ for the cross that we could replace them throughout the year. And this is the suffering Christ, and the one up in the church right now, which some have termed Touchdown Jesus, is the risen Christ, the victory of Christ up on the cross. I found this kind of amusing. Maybe you've heard it, but someone said, anyone else feel like Halloween is unnecessary this year? I've been wearing a mask and eating candy for 7 months now. I don't think I need a day dedicated to it anymore. Okay, I want to tell you a couple stories that are true, but they emphasize what God can do with just a little bit. About a month ago, someone called me on the phone and said, Ginny Trainor's husband died. Now, I've known, Ginny was a high school classmate of mine, so I've known her and her husband Tom for a long time. So I gave Ginny a call to express my condolences, and she mentioned how difficult it was right now for her and how much she missed her husband. And then she told me, and I always find this amazing, stories of how people first met. It was 1960, and she and her girlfriends were at a Pirate game in Forest Field. And sitting behind her was Tom Trainor. He didn't know her at all, and they didn't know him. But as the eyes of everyone was on the field, because remember, this is 1960 when the Pirates would eventually beat the Yankees, Maz would hit his home run. And as most people are watching the field, Tom is watching Ginny. So he asks her for her phone number. And she, of course, refuses. She doesn't know who he is. But one of her girlfriends secretly passes to him her phone number. Now, he's a Marine. He's on leave before he goes back to Camp Lejeune. He only has a couple weeks. So the next day, he calls her and asks her out on a date. And she says, okay, and figures, well, what harm could there be? He's going back to the Marines. I'll never see him again. And then he asked her out on another date. So they had 2 dates. And on the second date, Tom Trainor says to Ginny, will you marry me? Well, she says, you're crazy. I don't even know you. I have to go to Duquesne in the fall. I'm going to be a nurse. And he says, I'll wait. And he waited. And 4 years later, they were married. And I said to Ginny after she told me that story, I said, well, how long have you been married? And she said, 56 years. It's just amazing how this wonderful marriage and this wonderful family could begin with just a phone number or just the coincidence of Tom Trainor sitting behind her at a Pirate game. We always are amazed at what God can do with just a little bit. Today is the feast of St. Simon and Jude, 2 of the 12 apostles. Now, you might ask, why 12? Why not 25 apostles? Well, Israel was founded on the 12 sons of Jacob. And they became the 12 tribes of Israel that eventually became the nation of Israel. So when Jesus is forming the foundation of his church, which would be the new Israel, he founded on the 12 apostles. We celebrate two today, St. Simon and St. Jude. In 1962, Danny Thomas was a struggling entertainer. Work was scarce. He had a baby on the way. And so in his desperation, he prayed to St. Jude. He said, "If you show me my way in life, I will build you a shrine." And Danny Thomas became a great entertainer, very famous. And I meant to say 70 years ago, this Danny Thomas who had that deal with the promise to St. Jude. In 1962, he opened St. Jude Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. It is the most famous children's hospital in the country, specializes in childhood cancers and leukemia, and it all started with him praying to St. Jude, who is the patron saint of desperate situations. And when he prayed to St. Jude 70 years ago and said, "Show me my way in life, and I'll build you a shrine," and he did. And that shrine is St. Jude Hospital, and so many people donate to St. Jude Hospital that families don't have to pay a cent if their children are there. Once again, the idea how great things can happen with little beginnings. And the apostles were not great famous people. That's how our church started, with 12 fishermen, with a tax collector, and somehow Christ was able to build our church from these 12 apostles. So never underestimate what God can do with the little acts of kindness in your life. All right, have a good day, everybody. Thank you.